I think you're becoming a man when you become most vulnerable. And that's what I love so much about man games, right? Because I think immediately we all got vulnerable when we gave that gift, or when you gave that gift to Brandon.
Yeah.
Because it it hurts, right? I think everybody can relate to something that you love and treasure and precious, and it's like you're precious, and you just that's what you do, and you're a big fan of it, and you've had it for so long, and it had so much meaning to it. Like the bag had so much meaning to him, and now it's gone. Like it wasn't the wallet being stolen, it was like what the bag represented was stolen from him, and not the actual clubs and bag, because that's could all be replaced, right? It was
Yeah.
the what it represented. And um we were vulnerable of giving him this gift, and then he was vulnerable of showing that how much that meant to him, and he shed a couple tears, and it was hard not to get goosebumps and shed tears. And in essence, the group that we've made with Man Games is you are responsible for each other, and I think that's one of the hidden things that it's hard to explain. Like I feel responsible to help others in that group. I feel responsible to make sure that that group moves forward. It doesn't die, doesn't dwindle, it doesn't go backwards. I want to be a pillar in that growth of helping as many, like you said, helping as many people as you possibly can. Now, one thing, I mean, before we get rocking and rolling, one thing I wanted to present, if it has not already been thought of on your end, is have you thought of like making people ambassadors of Man Games? Because dude, I'm all in. I wish there was a Man Games like today. I'm that competitive and that upset at my placing that I'm all in, and just the networking from it, like it's literally the best concept I think I've ever seen. And I've done a lot of corporate events, and it's just all the corporate events that I go to, it's like get everybody in a room, get hammered, socialize, network. And then it's like, but I mean, you can only do that so many times before you're like, oh, well, who's a drunk and who's not a drunk, and who do I actually want to hang out with?
Yeah.
And this is like a completely different concept of let's do what most of us have done our whole lives and compete. And then we're going to have opportunities to share, socialize, network, and you just get it through competition. I didn't know how much I missed it until I did this Man Games.
Because you just don't get to experience it as much very often. On the last one with Brad, right? Like, sure, there every once in a while there's a men's league or there's something that you play in, but it's just different. Like it's just different. Yeah, and this wasn't initially like billed as a networking event when we started it. It was just really like, hey, my group of friends is more athletic than your group of friends. Let's go prove it. And but there's always people that you don't know or that you don't know well, and as you get in there, you start talking to them, you get to realize like there's some super cool dudes. And then I mean, even in this one, I think you may have experienced, I know I did, like you're pushing and shoving in basketball, got really physical. And then at the end of it, you're like giving each other hugs. And you're like, tell me about your life, right? Like, who are you and what's your life look like? So it's just a lot more natural, I think, than that. I don't know. There's a little bit more of a high pressure environment in networking events to do something. And this one's just not.
Yeah. So if you've thought about doing like ambassadors, I would be first on the list of whatever needs to happen to help promote, whatever needs to happen to help get sponsors, whatever needs to happen to make this. I think you got lightning in a bottle. You may not see it now, but just my experience from it, I think you got lightning in the bottle. And has it struck yet? No, but I think it will. And I would love to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form, because I think it's everything that I've been missing, and I know that everybody else missed it as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw something like that, and I'm just like, there's no reason why this can't be, nationwide, and then have like the big finale be in, in like Utah. Something so simplistic of a weekend is unbelievable, and I think that I know people that go on like week retreats for networking. Yeah. So it could be like a week-long thing instead of like a day and a half thing. Plus the networking side of it, I don't know. I just saw endless possibilities when I got done, and I
Yeah.
was more interested in the concept and wanted to, like I said, at any point in time, if you had ambassadors that you were thinking of, if you had extra roles that you wanted to give people to help grow it and build it, I mean, I'm all for it. I have no problem doing anything with man games and sponsoring it, or shelling it out through my group of network, and et cetera, et cetera. Truth be told, I think it's
Yeah.
a beautiful concept. I loved every minute of it and hated it at the same time as a competitor. And I think that, yeah, you have lightning in a bottle, brother. I don't know when it's going to strike, but it's going to strike.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I think it'd be so cool to have kind of like, look, there's the Ohio championship team, and then there's the hub, right? So everybody from all the states, or then you even have regions, right? So the
Right.
Northwest region goes against the Southwest region, and it's bringing in the Midwest and the East and all that stuff. And so you kind of culminates, even if you had 8 regions across the country, and then they all come into Utah or Palm Springs or whatever, and then we have
Right.
the ultimate man games event with
And then
athletes. I think you get some crazy good athletes.
all the other competitors are invited to come and watch and speculate,
That
like, that's what I mean, because it's also making it a network event by saying, look, everybody's invited, you've already competed, come and meet everybody else. If you want to stay and watch these particular events, and please do so. And yeah, televising it, I mean, like I said, I could see it going that far. I just can.
yeah.
I don't know if you ever did, but I definitely can. It's
Oh yeah,
that
well,
much.
like my dream actually was like, I got to figure out a way to get a hold of Tony Finau, Steph Curry, and some of these like athletes that, because Steph is a great golfer, he's a great basketball player. Tony Finau here, he played basketball, he played tennis, he's very good at a bunch of different sports. Nick Kyrgios, who's a tennis player, and he plays basketball, soccer, all that stuff.
Right.
It's like, what if we could get the professionals to do this, to where obviously there's going to be some liability things. So you couldn't do like 3-on-3 basketball, but it's like, okay, we're going to have a 3-point contest. Steph is involved. And then Tony Finau has to do it. Some hockey player has to do it. A baseball player has to do it. And then they all go to the other sport. So now it's a home run derby, and you can see the best athletes in the world in their specific element, and then compare them to other
Yeah.
really good athletes. I think that would be fun too.
Like I said, whatever you need on my end, dude, I'm in to do it.
Well, you're officially our first ambassador. So welcome aboard.
Yeah, let's do it. I have no problem putting that up on all my social media like immediately after this. Man Games
Yeah.
Ambassador.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then Girl Games it's a little bit different. Girl Games obviously so far has not been like the networking side of things, but for them it's been a really cool opportunity for women. I think even more so than men don't have the same opportunities from a sports perspective once they've moved on outside of high school, college, and now they're mothers and their wives and they're professionals and everything else, to get a weekend away and go play the sports that they grew up playing in a competitive environment that's actually organized, right? And so Girl Games has a whole different feel to it, but it's so cool. It's so much fun, and they're awesome, and they're a lot more willing to like share stuff on social, which is cool.
I want my wife to do it. My wife played college basketball and volleyball, and then all 3 of her other sisters played college basketball as well. And I was like, oh, you could have a girls team, but one's obviously in the hospital. But like, that's the possibility of it, right? It's that in an essence. And then I mean, my bestest friends in the world came from sports.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, I have a whole other psychological feel on how sports are, from a team perspective, because I was telling Bobby this, like, sports are so weird because the people that are in like your team, you want them to be like brothers, like family.
Yeah.
But then it's like this weird rub where if you had, like, you and I were both shooting guards,
Mhm.
well, like, I love you, but during those times, like, I kept like a good arm's distance away, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we're still competing, the competitiveness in both of us. It's like, I want our team to win, but I want our team to win with me playing,
Right.
right? And so it's one of, and I was telling Bobby, it was like, it's one of the reasons why I hated Chase Richards so much. Like, had nothing against him as like a human being or a person, but as a competitor and as him coming up from like a younger age, and then fucking hated the kid during basketball until I left and went to Juan Diego, because then it's like, well, I'm not competing against you for a particular spot. Sports are weird, man. I've done a whole deep dive on that before, on a recording of just myself, of like, sports is great, but it's weird, and it teaches like these crazy inner lessons of discipline that you have to abide by. And it's different now. What I loved about man games, and why I bring that up, is now as you're older and mature, right? Like your first rule is like, don't be a dick or an ass or whatever you said. And it's like, there was a lot of times where I wanted to get more physical, more heated. And it's like, oh, dude, I'm 34 years old. Like I'm not 16 or 17, or I'm not playing in college basketball in my early 20s. And it doesn't have to be like that to that point. Right. So it's hard to manage that when you're a kid, looking back on it. Like, how do you manage all those crazy emotions as a kid? From a sports perspective, I got my psychology degree, if you didn't notice.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and with sports too, even in high school, is I think up until probably my junior year, I was convinced that I was going to play D1, and then I was convinced that I still had a shot to play past that, which is absurd looking back on it, like just the statistics and everything behind it. But there's that, like, if Nate is playing ahead of me, then college scouts aren't going to see me, and then I'm not going to make it, and my dreams aren't going to come true, right? And so there is that arm's distance. And I was actually wanted to talk about, because I don't think I've ever told you this, but like Chase, I wasn't supposed to go to Jordan. I was supposed to go to Hillcrest. I was in the Hillcrest boundaries. I grew up with all the Hillcrest kids. Even in high school, I spent a lot of time with my friends at Hillcrest, and I ended up going to Jordan. And so coming in, my 8th grade year was kind of the first time that summer league for 8th grade, and then 9th grade coming in and playing. There is that competitive aspect to it. And now I'm meeting new people. I'm meeting you. I'm meeting Chris. I'm meeting Bobby. I'm meeting all of these people that you've all grown up together. You know each other from a basketball perspective. You kind of know your hierarchy. And I'm trying to break into that, right? And so that relationship in high school, when I think back to Nathan Snarr in high school, right, there was that exactly what you talked about the competitiveness. But you being a year older than me, I never felt like you were bullying or a jerk or I think you have the biggest heart. And I truly appreciate that. Like, again, looking back at those formative years of the high school development and who you associate with, like, I think I took for granted how good of a person you were coming up. And just, again, I had to have a chip on my shoulder, and I had to break into that. So I couldn't really accept people as readily as maybe I wanted to. So I just, now 15 years later, or whatever it is, I just thank you, right? Like, thank you for doing that. And then again, you moved on to Juan Diego, and a few months ago when Bobby brought up that you would be coming to Man Games, and then we reconnected, like, just the biggest smile comes to my face every time I see your name on my phone or anything. Like, I think the world of you, and it's really cool to be able to reconnect after all that time.
Yeah, dude, it's wild, because it's a funny thing too, also with like Cody. Cody was one of my best friends in high school, and I haven't hung out with Cody since high school. I just haven't. Like, I hung out with him once when he got back from his mission. I told Bobby going in Man Games, I was like, I want 2 things to happen. First and foremost, I want to win. Take first, which he sold me a bad bill of goods, which we can get into on the podcast. Want to win. And
I'm recording all this, so we might use some of this. So just, I mean, I'd rather it be natural.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, no, you can use it all. But I was like, I want you and Cody to reconnect, right? Because you definitely have not been friends like you used to. You still have like this great respect for, everything, and I want you guys to reconnect, and I want you guys to be together. And that's, even though we didn't win, that is something that did happen. They reconnected. I mean, after the first night, everybody was in the hot tub because we did an Airbnb, and it was like 1 o'clock. I'm like, you guys are nuts. I'm going to go hop in we went and bought a bunch of ice and put it in a bathtub. I'm like, I need to go do an ice bath, and I'm going to bed. And then come to find out, when we had to wake up so early in the morning, like at 7 o'clock, because we had to leave and clean up the Airbnb before we left, Cody and Bobby stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And it was like 3:30. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, we got to go compete soon. Like, this is supposed to be our best event. Like, what are you guys doing right now? And they were like dead tired. They got 0 sleep, but they reconnected, right? And I think it's one of the beauties of the Man Games, is what I saw is that, right? It's not a solo sport, even though we have like solo things in it, like golf. I guess golf was like the only one. I guess
Well,
poker.
poker, you're by yourself. Yeah.
Where you're all by yourself, right? It's just like your shot. It's your bet in poker, and you got to. It's a 4-man team, so you have to probably pick your team. And typically, if you're going to pick your team, it's going to be people that or at least associate with. And reconnecting was probably the coolest part about it because it felt like Bobby, Cody, and I knew Blaisdell a little bit in high school, but not a lot because of football. But I was also gone, for the majority of time with Blaisdell. So got to know Blaisdell, which he's a standout guy. But Bobby, Cody, and it truly felt like when we were around each other and around the Airbnb and just competing and stuff like that, it felt like we didn't miss a beat. Like it literally felt like high school all over again, as if I just hung out with them yesterday. I hung out with them the day before, and those are the special bonds and connections that you get to make in this type of event, as well as the networking aspect and all the other people that you get to see. So although we did not win, which is still extremely frustrating, like I call Bobby up and I go, hey, this is the strategy moving forward. I was like, this is what we need to do. I was like, one, I need to come in super early and we got to just like play a lot of these games and get the rules down and whatnot. And he's like, yeah. And then 2 hours go by and my wife, Molly's like, what are you doing? Like, get off the phone. There's not even another one until next year. Like, stop worrying about it. But it's cool. I loved every bit of it, man, truth be told.
That makes me so happy. And you've touched on the 3 pillars. If you remember the very opening speech, like you're going to feel the sense of competitiveness and pressure and wanting to do well and perform well. You're going to have memories with your friends. You're going to make memories with your friends, lifelong friends that you're never going to forget. And then you're going to meet really, really cool people and make new friendships. And so it sounds like you got all of that out of it, which, I mean, that's mission accomplished in my eyes.
No, I didn't win, so it's definitely not mission accomplished. Taking 6 was like it's a really bad taste in my mouth.
What surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most is the level of competition, in a good way and in a bad way. So Bobby sold me a bad bill of goods. He's done, I think this was his 3rd or 4th man games, and every time he's done a man games, he's always talked to me about it. Always said, hey, we got to get you out here for this. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, well, let me know if you need a spot. I'll come in. And after the last man games, I told him, like, I was constantly on it, like, hey, I want to do this. I want to see it. So even though I haven't participated, I've kind of participated from afar. And Bobby's always said, like, I either get 2nd or 3rd every time. And golf is like our worst sport. Like we take last in golf and it just kills us. Right? He's like, we take 2nd in basketball, we take 2nd in this. We haven't really won an event, but we're 2nd in all of these. And I'm like, okay, cool. We need golfers.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like I'm a decent golfer. I'm not a scratch golfer by any means, but I'm a pretty decent golfer. I know Cody's a pretty decent golfer. Cody's like a 12 or 13 handicap, and depending on the day, like he can really strike it. Like if you catch him on a hot day, he's really, really good. So I'm like, great. Like we just need to get top 3 in golf. I was like, that's all I was telling the guys, like top 3. So we leave golf. We're like the last ones to finish. I swear we're the last ones to finish on everything, but we leave golf and we're 3rd. So we're walking like into the clubhouse with everybody finishing their meals. Like, oh, we're hot shit. Like we walked in, I'm like, oh, we got 3rd in golf. Like, oh, we got this in the bag. Like we're winning this whole thing. Let's do it. And then we go from eating like it's a celebratory meal. It was perfect. We hop in the car. I'm like, all of us are all smiles. We get to the next event, pickleball. Cool. Like I played pickleball maybe twice. Cody's never played. I don't think Alex Blaisdell's ever played. But I'm like, guys, it's not that hard. And then obviously Bobby played tennis. So I know Bobby knew how to play pickleball. So I'm like, dude, we got this. Bobby and I will be A bracket. You guys be B bracket. Just do the best you can. Win, at least half of your matches are golden. Bobby and I didn't win any matches. We didn't win anything. And not only that, like it was crazy embarrassing, like ungodly embarrassing. I know our first match we were playing against Peyton and Taylor, and we were up like 8-0. And the whole time still I was like, yeah, we're rocking this. This is easy cake. And it's like we gave them a warm up, and I don't think we scored a point after that. They
Wow.
just scored 11 straight points after that. And then I don't remember who we played next, but we just got freaking tanked. Like we played you guys, and Bobby told me well before, he's like, this is gonna be a bad game. I was like, what do you mean it's gonna be a bad game? He was like, no, like this is gonna be a really bad game. We just got straight embarrassed. So we go from being third to I think being like sixth or seventh immediately after pickleball.
Yeah.
And we were deflated. Bobby was super upset because he didn't play his best game in pickleball. He knew that he had a lot of shots that he could have, put out there. Once again, the pressure point of being competitive. He just hasn't played anybody competitive like that in pickleball, so he's never had to really like crank it up like that.
Yeah.
And so then we go from there to spike ball, which I didn't even know spike ball was a thing. Never even heard of it. So I'm in the B bracket with Cody, who's maybe played once. And we get out of that. I think Cody won. Cody and I won 3 or 4 games, which we thought we did pretty well. And then I think Bobby and Blaze maybe won 1 or 2 games. And we're leaving that. It's starting to get cold. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, what is pickleball? Like, who thought of pickleball and why? Like, I don't get it. Like, pickleball killed us. Like, spike ball, we did okay in spike ball, but pickleball, like the whole time I couldn't get my mind around pickleball. And then we're going into the home run derby. I'm just sitting in the outfield. It's freezing cold. I've had plenty of conversations with God knows how many people, Weston, Chase, all them, like great conversations, but like I was halfway there. Because I'm like, how do I get better at pickleball? Like I'm pretty decent at ping pong. Like, how do I get better at pickleball? This is stupid. And then by the time we left in the home run derby, which we didn't do that great in home run derby because we were the last ones to go. We were frozen icicles.
Yeah, it was the coldest for you guys.
Yeah. And when we got in the car to go to poker, by the time we get to poker, I think I'm following 3 or 4 different pickleball Instagrams where I'm like, I need to get better at pickleball. I was like, how much is a paddle? Where do I go to play pickleball? This is going to be another event. You know what? I need to know what pickleball is. And then before I buy anything, I needed to make sure. My wife's like, don't buy anything because she knows I'm crazy like that. I'll go and get like, if there's pickleball shoes, I'll go buy pickleball shoes. I'll go buy like pickleball shorts, shirts. I don't know if I wear gloves, but if there's gloves, I'll wear pickleball gloves. Like, no matter what, we have to do better next time. And we just got straight embarrassed. It was a disgrace. Like, I love Bobby Macy, but I will replace him if I need to win pickleball games.
Win pickleball
next time. Like, I don't care what it is. So have not bought anything pickleball wise, but you were kind of informing me that we are going to have pickleball on the docket still. So with that being said, I'll leave this podcast and probably start buying some pickleball stuff. And hell, I may even have a pickleball court in my backyard by the time the next Man Games happens.
Dude, I love the devotion, and we've got lots of recommendations around pickleball stuff. John, who is on our team, is an unbelievable pickleball player, and he knows all of his stuff. So
yeah, he toyed with me. I remember that match. I was just happy to get a point on you guys. That was like the saving grace is that we got a point on you two. And Bobby's like, hey, we did pretty good that game. It was 11-1. Yeah. Like, yeah.
No, John is unreal at pickleball. Like, very, very good.
Yeah, your whole team's stacked. Brandon's really good. Donnie's unbelievable. I was like, I see why Eric wins every time. He stacks his team. So
well, he talked about how important teams are. And then as you get older, you start to realize like a good team, you are all able to talk about each other's weaknesses openly. And then those who have strengths can cover the weaknesses, right? And so as we're planning who's going to play what, we all know each other really, really well. And so it can be like, look, here's where we need to go during a game. Here's what we need. In basketball, we got down a couple times and Brandon's an unbelievable shooter. Just boom, boom, boom. He hits a bunch of threes. We're back in it, right? And so I don't know, the team aspect of it to really succeed at Man Games, you do have to take kind of top 3 in every event. And then you can't have weaknesses, right? You have to be able to win multiple events. And then you can't have an event where you lay an egg.
No, you can't lay an egg. You lay an egg, you're done. Like once pickleball was done, we were like, okay, maybe we could get third. I think by the time spike ball was done, we were in like the 4 and 5 range. We were competing against, I think it was Kyle and Carson and his team for like the 3rd spot. And I'm like, okay, so we maybe have a chance. And then I started going through all the points of what we needed to do in home run derby to what we needed to do in basketball, which I really thought we were going to win basketball. Fortunately, Bobby was like a one-man show because I hurt my shoulder and I just could not do much of anything besides stay on the perimeter and just jack up threes, which I love doing anyway. As you know, we played all together. So that's kind of my happy spot. But I mean, very similar to you, like we both had growth spurts, right, from high school. So for the most part, we had pretty significant height advantages on a lot of people that were guarding me. So realistically, how it would have gone is I would have played post, more pick and roll action with Bobby, or pick and pop, or slide, whatever we needed to do. And that was like the strategy going in. And then Blaisdell and Cody were going to be the bruisers, the rebounders. If they're wide open for a shot, go ahead and take it, or a layup. But that was kind of the ordeal. And when I was talking to Brad earlier today, I was like, yeah, after we played them first, and I tried to go around Brad, and I did not know how bad my shoulder hurt until obviously the contact happened. And I got like the stinger feeling where I couldn't feel, like it stung all the way down to my fingertips. I'm like, okay, that was kind of weird. And then I did it like a couple possessions later, and it happened again. And then the throbbing started to go. And I'm like, I can't even get this touched, which that's what you're doing, right? You're typically driving off to your right, and then it's getting banged up with your left shoulder. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a really tough day for Bobby because I can't drive at all. And I don't even want to go down low. I don't want to get bumped. His shoulder hurt from all the diving I did in spike ball.
Really?
I was super into spike ball. I was like, oh, this game's awesome. So every time there was like a further ball away, I'm like, yeah, I'll dive, no problem. Like I'll go lay out, and was doing that, but I was landing on my left shoulder every time. And of course, you're not going to feel it that night. You're so exhausted. Like I would have slept on a rock and be completely fine after that first day. So I didn't feel anything until we started. Literally, we checked up. I got first possession, and I was like, that was a weird feeling in my left shoulder. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be bad. And so I was disappointed, but I think we did really well in basketball in compared to who we faced. I mean, we only lost 3 games. We lost one to you guys. We lost one to Chase and Weston's team, listen, there's got to be like a youth cutoff, by the way, because they were like the Energizer bunnies. They did not move. Chase, they were all over the place.
Yeah.
And we didn't stand a chance. I told everybody afterwards, and I told Bobby again, I was like, listen, I think we could have won every basketball game but that game. Yeah. He's like, why do you say that? I was like, there's no way I was going to chase those guys around. Just no chance. Like
I think they're all 27, and then they've got Maddie is 30. And then the other team, so Sione's team, they have a few 27-year-olds, and then they have a 22-year-old. So the 22-year-old was the youngest one at Man Games. And then for us, I mean, 22 to 34 it's a big difference physically, right? And just your energy levels. And kids, I think, add another 20 years each. So it's definitely an energy difference.
No, when I think Chase shot a 3-pointer. It hit the opposite side of the rim and went the opposite way. He actually got his rebound. So he shot it, already ran past all of us, got his rebound, and was able to come back to the hoop without any contest. Like we didn't contest him at all. I was immediately after that play, I was like, nope, this is wave the white flag, because there's no way that I have any energy for these folks. Like their energy level is way too high. I'm not even in decent shape, and that was terrible. It was literally the pace of basically D2 basketball, and I'm like, nope, don't got that in me.
Basketball was stacked this year. Like there were a lot of good basketball teams.
A lot of good basketball teams, yeah. You know who was super impressive was Carson in volleyball.
Yeah.
Super funny story. So Carson, obviously all that hype around Carson to being a volleyball player, and you could just tell like he is definitely a volleyball player, right? Mm-hmm. The length, the height, he could bounce out of the gym. Like he dunked it on us, which thankfully was not on me, because I don't want to experience one of those again. I did it too much in college. But when we played him, I was like, yeah, he's really good. I was like, but I don't know how old he is. Like, BYU is definitely nationally ranked all the time. Like, yeah, he's really good. I questioned on if he was like a starter, if he played. Like, I could see him being there. And then our last volleyball game, our team just threw. Like we were just like, nope. I want to go watch, them play against you guys because you were both undefeated. I'm like, I want to watch this game. Like I will take a loss in volleyball. Like I'm not winning this thing. Like we're holding on for dear life at 6th place. Like I don't really care. So we just immediately just got done with our game as fast as possible. And the way he played against you guys, I was like, like
he was throttling for most of it, and then he comes against us, and then he was just like, yeah, we're gonna win this one.
No, he probably gave our squad like 35%.
Yeah.
And I went up to him after that game. I was like, Carson, thank you so much for going that easy on my team because wow. Like, are you kidding me? Like the final point, he did a jump serve, and
it went right at me.
Alone. Well, did it hit you?
Well, he hit it right at me, and so I was just like, I'm gonna hope this goes out, and I am not getting in front of this. And so he just hits it so hard, and I just move, and it lands like at my feet. It wasn't even close to going out. It just boom, but he hit it so hard. I was like, I'm not gonna do anything with this.
Dude, it was harder than any of the spikes he did against us.
Yeah,
a jump serve. I was like, wow, this guy is like crazy impressive. I was like, this.
So he played professionally for a while too. Yeah, not just college.
Yeah. Like you said, from a competitor standpoint, because I would still argue I'm definitely the most competitive guy I've ever met. Like I'm just messed up in the brain like that in a good way, right? It's a blessing and a curse. So I always try to size people up. So when he played against us, I'm sizing up an athlete. Like I'm like, oh, he's really good, but I'm sizing him up, right? And you do that in everything. I did that in every sport that we played against. Everybody that we played against, I was sizing everybody up. And it's just, you do it naturally. I hope everybody was doing the same thing about me. Like that's the nature of man games and being a competitor. So with him, I was sizing him up when he was playing against me. Did I think he was great? Yes. Did I see like a professional athlete volleyball player that I watch on TV? Not necessarily, right? Like, because it's how he played us.
Yeah.
And then unbeknownst to me, you see him turn it up. And I still don't even think he gave his all against you.
No, I think he was probably like 60% against us.
Yes. I know you could tell just by how he was moving. And I was like, oh God, like my estimation size up of Carson was dead wrong. Like not even close, like apples and oranges difference.
And nothing against his teammates, but I feel like him and one other person would have beat our entire team. Like serving, we were trying to serve away from him, and he was able to receive any serve that we wanted. And then if he could just get that serve to somebody who could put a set anywhere, then he'd just come in and he'd just either slam it down at any angle you can imagine, or he would tip it to where somebody wasn't. And he's so high above the net that he can just do whatever he wants with it. It was really cool to experience. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah, I can tell you from where I sat, eating the leftover pizza was fantastic. I loved every bit of watching that because, like I said, I mean, from a competitor, it's why we go to sports, right?
Yeah.
So why we go to basketball games, why we go to football games, why we go to baseball games. Like you want to see greatness, right? So moving forward in regards to man games, like if a team doesn't make it or not into like the pool of the competitors for like the grand finale or whatever you want to call it, I'm like, networking done, like get everybody there anyway from a networking perspective. And then you have people that competed in these, like you have spectators, right? You have people that I would watch Carson play all day, every day, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'd love to see him going 100%. Like I'd love to see a world where he is in a group of people similar to him going 100%.
Yes, and I would pay money to watch that.
Yeah.
I just would, right? Similar to like you do with everything else. Like I would pay money to watch that, right? Seeing you and John play pickleball, like that was being on the receiving end, knowing that I've toyed with people and not toyed with people in sports, but really try to dumb it down as much as I possibly can. And like you said, pull off the throttle and just make it fun with the people that you're playing against. I mean, as a competitor, you do that all day, every day, right? Like that's almost something you just, especially with kids too, when you have kids, like you're doing it constantly. So like what you did with us, very similar, like what you guys did with us in pickleball, like you made it fun and entertaining, even though fun and entertaining, you were still crushing us, right? And it's very similar like how Carson was with volleyball. And it's how I felt like we would have been from a basketball perspective. And now looking at it, if I was in a lot better shape and wasn't injured and a handful of other things, would have gone our way. But it's the nature of the beast, right? Like in every sport, everybody's injured. That was the fun about it. Like everybody was dying that second day. There's but maybe besides Weston and Chase's team, like those kids were just, I call them kids. They were kids.
Well, and they were sore, right? And I think that you actually had your injured shoulder, and then I kind of busted a toenail. But outside, like injuries, Ted turned an ankle. But luckily, like injury-wise, we didn't have a lot of serious injuries, but everybody was as sore as could be with their legs and backs and arms and shoulders just from, again, we did 8 athletic events, tournaments in a day and a half, right?
Yeah. Well, that first day was like 18 hours. If you count poker.
Yeah.
It was like doing an 18-hour shift, let alone playing sports, is a lot on your body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like but God, dude, it was so much fun. Like right after we were done, I was like, I hate man games. It sucks. I hated everything about it. Mostly because the competitive part about me was like this. I hate taking sixth. I hate, placing this way. I know we could do a lot better. I need to get in a lot better shape. Like I'm sitting at 240. I mean, my college basketball playing weight was 190, right?
Yeah.
And I hate saying that out loud because you don't know that you're fat until you know that you're fat. Like you don't know you're out of shape until you play, Chase and Weston's team. You're like, wow, I'm really out of shape here. Like this is terrible. Like I never want to be in this type of shape again. So like there's so much that goes with man games of competitiveness, networking. It's like a health check. It's look in the mirror. It's what are you capable of? What aren't you capable of? And it pushes the envelope. That's what I loved about it as well. From a competitive aspect, is it truly pushed the envelope of what was possible, right? It was like, this is the next event. You got to play it no matter what. This is the next event. You got to play it no matter what. And in high school, like we just did all those naturally. And now when you're in your 30s and when we had one 40-year-old, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Have I fallen from high school? This is crazy.
Yeah. Yep. It's it can be a humbling experience. Right. And then again, you get around the right athlete and you can really see what it's really like. That's what I like. I like dominating people, right? Like I like being able to just assert my will over people in certain sports. But I also like the flip side of it. Again, Carson is the example. I really like seeing people in their element that are just so good. And then going back and saying, okay, how can I figure out how to get to there? And not, I would never get to Carson's level in my entire life if I played every day for the rest of my life. But how could I get to where I would at least be respectable? And instead of being able to return 0 out of 10 of his serves, I can return 3 and then 5 and then 7, right? And so I really like seeing people in their elements compete. I think it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, that's how I felt about pickleball. If you want me to talk about pickleball again, I can, because that was ungodly embarrassing. And I don't know how you guys weather against other people that play on a daily basis, but I can assure you the next man game, I'm at least winning one pickleball match.
Perfect.
If I have to go to the lower bracket, I'll do it, Eric. Like I'll go to the lower bracket. I'll do it.
Oh, that is so awesome. Well, I'm super pumped that you had a good time. Like genuinely, there's an aspect like as you get older, like you shouldn't care what other people think, but this is kind of my baby, and I really do care what people think about it. And there's no way I can please everybody, but to know that you had a good time, and there's good and there's bad that comes with it, but we're always improving and we're always trying to make it better. So your feedback is very much appreciated, and as we move forward and scale this and make it bigger and better, then hopefully you're there with us.
Yeah, I can't imagine a world that I'm not, truth be told. I can't. It's addicting, right? Very similar to every other sport that you do. It's very, very, very much addicting where you, like you said, you put it perfectly. You go against people that are in their element, and the competitive side of you says, okay, well, if I devote X amount of time into this, am I going to get to that level? No, like I'll never be a professional volleyball player like Carson. It's just not even close to happening. But could I feel like we could compete better the next time we meet him? And then hell, a couple bounces go your way. That's the beauty about sports, dude, is you still have to play the game, right? No matter what, you still have to play the game. I mean, one of the things that did kill us when we played Chase and Weston is I think I went 0 for 6 and Bobby missed 3 or 4 wide, like not wide open layups, but Bobby missed 3 or 4 layups. And Coach Tilby would have yelled at him like he did back in the day. Remember when he called those 98 percenters? It's like, Bobby, you're right there, 98%, but you gotta finish it. So that's still a joke between him and I. So he definitely had a ton of 98 percenters, and I know he went like 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 on the 3-point line. But once again, I still don't know if we win that game. They were like jackrabbits. They were everywhere. And there's just no way that, unless if we're in better shape, there's no way we're winning it against a team like that. But everybody else, I thought, I mean, you guys had a great basketball team. We lost to you guys, and you guys beat us pretty handsomely. I think it was like 6 to whatever we were going to, 11 maybe. But I feel like you guys had a great plan against us. You guys had a really good plan against us with as the key ball handler. And so been talking to him and coaching him up on what we need to do next time we play you guys. So
perfect. Do you want to share that with me, or do you want to keep that a secret?
No, I'll share it with you, because what I loved so much about basketball, and I know you're an elite basketball player and you're highly intelligent. So very similar, like you and I. Like I don't play college basketball. Like you said, growing up, I'm playing in the NBA. I'm going D1 to North Carolina or Duke. Like this is what was going to happen, right? And then you hit high school and you make the sophomore team as a freshman. And unlike it is here in Ohio, where everybody starts high school in 9th grade, like that's a big deal in Utah, because you don't start high school until 10th grade.
Yeah.
Right. So me telling people like, hey, I made the high school team as a freshman, they're like, yeah, so like, well, no, it's not really so, because we're not in the same building. It's not, like it's not expected, right? So up until freshman, like right after freshman year, I'm like, I'm well on my way, right? The path is laid out for me, sophomore year, JV, some varsity time, like that's what you're thinking in your head. And so as you get older and as you mature, you're like, oh, well, this is a lot harder than I expected, right? And then politics is a big deal in high school. I was telling Brad today, I was like, what's funny about high school basketball or high school sports in general is you fully trust and instill that your coach is like the smartest person that you'll ever meet in regards to that sport. And then when you get our age, they don't know anything. It's like, how are they even qualified? Right? Like they don't pay them hardly anything to coach. Like, how do you expect yourself to get in scenarios where you're really nurtured the right way from a sporting perspective? And you just don't get that till you get in college, personally, because I did play college.
Yeah.
So, and then when you get into college, then you see all the crazy intangibles like a Carson, right? For instance, or Kyle. Kyle and I are basically the same height, but Kyle's arm length is probably 2 or 3 inches past mine. And where am I going with this from a long-winded perspective? The only way I play college basketball or college sports period is one, I'm that fiery of a competitor, but 2, it's all about like basketball intelligence and smarts and how it works, right? Understanding how to break down an offensive player, how to guard them, understanding how to break down a defensive player, what to attack from a foot perspective, how to read screens, right? You never knew any of that stuff until you get into, the college level and you're playing against, a D1 or D2, or, I ran with the D League for like a month and a half in Utah right after one of my knee injuries. And it's like, those are the intangibles that you learn that you expect that you're going to learn in high school, which looking back at the qualification of the high school coaches that you and I had, and I'm not going to name any names, but it's pretty terrible. And I don't know if everybody would agree. Everyone would have to agree with us.
I think like, especially now you look at, I even think it's changed a lot over our lifetime. And then you look at like our parents' generation, where you'd have these coaches that were there for 20, 30 years. Even you look at like Hal Hale, right? And he was a legendary coach at Jordan. And then now it seems like they turn over so quickly, and they're there for a couple of years and they go somewhere else. And you talk about like the qualifications again, they're like any profession, they're good and they're bad. And there's a little bit in between, most are in between. And it seems like they're very passionate about basketball. They're very passionate about helping youth. And those are like the 2 most important qualifiers. But yeah, knowledge isn't necessarily up there, right? It's
Right.
It's really just the people who are passionate about basketball, and then they apply, and they're teachers, and so it kind of whittles that pool down a little bit.
Right. So one of the things that I work with Bobby almost every time that I'm in Utah, because him and I go play basketball, we play one-on-one together and stuff like that, is working on that side of it, which he should have been taught in,
Yeah.
sophomore, freshman, junior, et cetera, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are you going this way? I'm forcing you this way. Why would you go this way? Oh, well, I don't know. And then why aren't you shooting? I'm 2 feet, like I'm 2 arm lengths away from you. Like you're a shooter. Like why wouldn't you shoot? It's funny because the one clip that you have of me in on Man Games, the short video where I shot a 3-pointer and made it, you don't have the right before, but Bobby set a screen, and because my guy stayed on the screener and then his defender stayed low, I literally said out loud, "What am I doing? I have to shoot the ball." And then I pop up and I shoot it, and luckily you've got a clip of me making it, which is
Yeah.
awesome. But like it's those intangibles of why I was capable of playing, because I was able to read screens, right? Giving and receiving the screens. How is the defender going to take this? And that's part of the game that I'm trying to help with Bobby in regards to that, because he's such a great basketball player.
Yeah.
But and he'll admit this too, whether he gets on one of these or not, or you speak to him in person, like he gets it and understands it. And the thing is he's so thirsty for that knowledge. He wants it, even at this age of 34. Like he wants that knowledge because he still plays so much hoops. But he, in essence, in my mind, is still so raw of like a basketball player, because he doesn't know those things. Like I was setting screens against you guys, and how you guys were playing it, were staying on him no matter what. Well, guess what? I slipped like 3 or 4 of those screens. I was wide open, and he just doesn't know what that is.
Right.
Like, or I would roll and he wouldn't even, like, he's so, like, his head is down. He's not reading the scenario, what's going on. And obviously you can't teach him in game of how that's going, because, you just, it's like one of your kids. You just can't teach him in game. Like you got to let them experience it and then teach them out, or at least try and teach them after if they're willing to listen.
Yeah.
So he's still so raw when it comes to some of that stuff, and it really upsets me because he is such a great basketball player and he didn't have a chance to really showcase that in high school, because he is a high school basketball player in my mind. He's a collegiate basketball player. If he was taller, then I don't know, maybe D League, maybe overseas possibly, because he's that great of a basketball player, but he's missing that side of it. So I think when he gets that side of it, even at this age, I think he's going to be really unstoppable. And one of the main reasons why I want to teach him this, because I want him to teach his kids, because he has kids. And that's how I presented to him. Like, dude, at some point in time, you're going to start teaching your kids how to do this, right? You're going to start teaching Corey. You're going to start teaching Parker. You're going to start teaching Theo, right? If they want to play basketball. And of course they're going to. Why wouldn't they? Like, he played basketball. Heidi played basketball. And like, you got to learn this side of the game, because it's not all just run, shoot, layup, run past people. Like, you can do that. And he was able to do that for the majority of the time against Man Games. But when you go against people who played basketball and played at a very high level, like your team, right?
Yeah.
What, Donnie played college basketball for a little bit. You could have played college basketball. I don't know about John, but he was really good as well.
John played, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys knew how to guard him. You knew he was our focal point of the team, and with him having the ball in his hands the majority of the time, which that's how it's always going to be, no matter what, because he's the point guard. He needs to, once he learns that side of it, it's going to be very hard to guard him, because it's how Michael Jordan did it. Like, it's like how Kobe Bryant did it. That's how they talk. Like in their camps, if you watch them on YouTube, somebody comes and guards them. He's like, okay, well, you're guarding me like this, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then if you change your guard position, he's like, okay, well, now I'm going to do this. And then say you just go straight up with them. He's like, well, I'm going to take one dribble and see how you move and maneuver, and then I'm going to work from there. It's like reading a book. Yeah. And that's what I love so much about basketball, because I was able to get that early on in my life. And like I said, I don't think I played college basketball if I didn't have that, and I wasn't that crazy competitor that would just do anything to play, anything to win, anything to be on the team. There's just no other way I play college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, like, and we had several of my friends come up. They were on different teams at man games, and they were like, "Man, like we thought we were in it, and then Bobby just went off, and we couldn't stop Bobby." And I tell Bobby this too. It's like if you don't know who Bobby is and you've never played with him, he's very dangerous on a basketball court.
Yeah,
And if you don't know what you're doing and your teammates aren't communicating, Bobby is a very dangerous person to play against in basketball because he can get hot. And then what do you do? So yeah, going into that one, luckily I did know Bobby and I've played with Bobby for a long time, and so
yeah,
we definitely had a plan going into that one for sure.
yeah. You guys knew what to do. And then even after, I think I hit 2 quick threes, and then you were yelling. I think it was at John or Donnie was guarding me. You're like, you cannot. You had your team adjust very fast against me, and then like you said in basketball, if you come up perfect, right? But I didn't have that capability with how bad my shoulder hurt. But yeah, Bobby has one of the quickest first steps, and I put that against anybody, a high school kid, a college kid. Like he has that really, really fast, quick step where he places it right where he needs to get around you. But the thing is, it's always right. It's never
Yeah.
left.
Yeah.
It's always right. But he can go left. He's really good at going left, but it's always right. And it's these things that he actually, and at least he tells me, and he could be lying because we've been best friends for, I don't know, 20 years. He says that he enjoys it when I talk to him about it because I break down how it is when him and I play one-on-one and why I would do certain things. And he's capable of being very, very dangerous on a basketball court.
Yep.
Very dangerous.
Let me ask you this. What event would you like to have seen or would you like to see in future man games that wasn't there at this one?
I would have liked cornhole just because of the laid back laziness of it.
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed because I'm really good at cornhole as well. So I was like, oh man, I don't know. I didn't know about cornhole until I went to Ohio. And then me and one of my buddies that I played college basketball with, him and I throughout college for about 3 years here in Ohio, we went undefeated. So I was like, oh man, we get cornhole, like it's game over.
Nice.
Like I got that cornhole game down, and that's one game just for sheer selfishness. I was like, oh man, I would like that. Or maybe like a 3-point contest. That would be fun. I know we brought that up earlier. That would be a lot of fun just because, we're shooters, right?
Yeah.
Shooters shoot. I didn't feel like I shot particularly well in man games, but I know statistics show I shot really well, just because I know my stats, which is how much it works. But I felt like I could have shot better.
Yeah, I mean, both of those have been in past. We try to shuffle things around, right? So cornhole it's in the spring qualifiers, as we talked about. So cornhole will be a part of that one, for sure. How did you came, I think it was 1,700 miles from, I mean, I looked it up, so it's not like my brain's just doing this automatically, but 1,700 miles from Cleveland to Heber, Utah. How did you convince your better half to let you do that, to go spend some time with a bunch of dudes and play sports for 2 days?
Man, I just have one of those lucky ones in a wife, truth be told. I do a lot of personal development. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur, so I love that type of thing. She knows that, I love going out to 3 days or 2-day events, and I'm going to another 2-day this week down in Dallas. And so she's familiar with it. She does get tired of, like I told you, those type of events are a ton of drinking. It's a ton of socializing. And I mean, the older I get, the further away I get away from stuff like that, just because body doesn't really like to do it. And I have kids in the morning. I got to wake up no matter what. Right.
Yeah.
So man games came up and I was like, babe, Bobby's recruited me. I kind of pitched it and pushed a lot of leverage on Bobby. I was like, Bobby's recruited me. It's this, crazy event where we do all of this stuff. And I leveraged it with my mom was turning 60. And then my older brother had a little baby. I'm like, hey, let's just go knock out 3 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to be with the fellas for like three days competing. And she's like, okay, sure. Like she knows me really well. She knows if I want to do something that, she's just crazy supportive, and probably don't deserve her, but she chose me anyway.
That's awesome. That's super cool. You do have the official longest distance traveled to man games award. I mean, if there was an award, I'd give it to you, but I don't have one. Maybe I should make one, but you are the longest traveler.
Listen, you're telling me I won something. I'm great with that.
I'll get you a trophy and you can put it on that shelf there behind you. The previous record was 1,000 miles. So Donnie used to live in Kansas City. Now he lives in Minneapolis. I think, well, Minnesota. I think it's Minneapolis. He can correct me. And then you're the longest by like 70% at this point. So way to
Yeah, it
be.
was funny. I kept on messing with my team. Anytime something happened, I'd be like, I came from Ohio. Just let me do this. Like,
Well, it was 2 hours ahead for you, right? Like you're on Eastern time, right?
yeah, that's the other thing that I would like. I told Bobby, I was like, I got to come in like 3, 4 days early, or maybe a week early, get acclimated. Because yeah, when that night after the first night when we went down, it was getting close to 1. I'm like, guys, this is 3 o'clock my time. And programmed with kids, you're going to wake up at 6:45, 7 o'clock, no matter what. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what happens the night before. Like that's how my body's programmed. So me, I was like wide awake at 5 o'clock, and then I had to force myself to try to go back to sleep, and then I'm still wide awake because I just feel like one of my kids are gonna have to wake me up or I have to do something, right? And you're mentally, my mind and like my body just wasn't acclimated at that point in time. So uh you could put a little asterisk to the 6th place because
We'll
of
give you
that.
like some bonus points.
Yeah, and let's do bonus. Does it get us in 5th place? Does it bump out 5th place?
I'll
Or
have to talk to whoever was in first, 5th place to see what they think about it. But it
I don't
depends
think
on who offers me the biggest check. Then we can figure that out.
I could do that right now. What do you want? How much? What do we need? Can I get to 4th depending on
Dude,
how big the check is?
I am easily bought, man. Like I have no morals when it comes to any of this. So you pay me enough and you guys got first place. I don't even care.
So I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
What was like a shocking thing that's happened this past man game? So I'm assuming there's always kind of maybe not like an epiphany, but this is what like the 4th or 5th one that you've done. I'm assuming you have one of those aha moments or wow, that's really cool or something along those lines where it makes each man games different and special.
Yeah.
So that's the question that I want to throw back to you because you're the leader of all this, right?
It's such a good question. I two things that I'm going to go in that off of that question. So the first is I was thinking about I was kind of going deep in my brain of like what is my legacy that I'm going to leave behind on this earth and everything, right? And there's the family aspect, there's the kids and the relationships that I have with people. Like the older I get, the more I feel like the whole meaning of my life is relationships. Again, starting first with family and then the friends that we have. And so this will kind of tie into it. But I was thinking like you go of like what were the best years of your life? And there's so many people that kind of get stuck in high school, right? Like high school, if I could go back to high school and do it all over again. But then after this man games, I realized like this was one of the most fun experiences that I've ever had in my life. And it is such a stressful time for me. I don't sleep for the days leading up to it. I'm kind of dragging in a zombie through all of it, but it is so much fun for me to compete. And my team specifically, we have such a history between the four of us in different ways. And I just think the world of them. They are as close to brothers to me as my own family. And then the people that I get to meet and to reunite with you, to reunite with Cody, and to be with Bobby and Alex and all of the teams. I can go through all these people. And then I got to meet new people with the entire Year in Trouble team. Never met
Yeah.
them before. They were all absolutely stellar individuals and great athletes and really fun to get to know. Even the special blend team. So the twins I knew and Ted I knew, but Ryan I didn't. And just during the home run derby, we just kind of sat there and behind I think Alex Blaisdell was hitting, and me and Ryan were just talking for a minute and just getting to know his story. And it's just, that was really, really cool. So that was kind of the epiphany from my end of just that event specifically was really, really interesting to realize you're living your best years, right? You're in the middle of the best days of your life. And so that was really, really cool for me. And then the other part was the Brandon thing, I think was a lot of fun for me to do because with each of these events, I want to, and I've always talked from the beginning as soon as revenues to a point where we can start a nonprofit and do good out in the world and do good for people. So the last two events, we've been able to do little things for people that helps and to kind of lift where you stand, if that makes sense. And so I know that you were a big help with that. And then the other people who stepped up with man games and who were able to help us to put something together that I think was pretty special for Brandon. I mean, golf is Brandon's life. Golf is very, very near to his heart. And so to have his golf club stolen from him and then to have that happen I think was really, really cool for him, and it was cool for me, and I hope that it was cool for the other people that got to experience it too. So those are, I don't know if that's the direction that you were thinking with that, but those are the epiphanies I had of it. It's one that I can I can make it an environment, and all of us together make an environment where we have an awesome time together and build memories, and then we can do good. We can do good for people with it.
No, it gives me goosebumps, right? So it's one of the reasons why it's hard to explain man games. Like if somebody were to ask me, like, well, what is man games? Like it's very difficult for me to answer because one, I really crave that type of camaraderie.
Yeah.
And you lose it after high school. Now, granted, if you're blessed to go play college, you're going to regain it pretty fast, which I did, up until I was 23, 24. So, but you lose it, right? And then you go from there to wife, to kids, and then your camaraderie happens with your family, which is great. And I love them. And, they're my everything, right?
Yeah.
But it's a group of guys that is trying to just be good people, right?
Mhm.
And be good guys. And when you put out that that happened to Brandon, I was like, man, one, it was two-pronged. One, to have the thought process of, hey, I want to do this for somebody. You probably lost money on it, if I were to guess, just because of the clubs that you bought and the video that you put up and bag, etc. Like I was like, I don't know if you got enough, but you were like, look, I want to do this. If you want to contribute, great. If you don't, great. But you're building this crazy bond with people that, like you said, you don't really get until like outside of high school sports or
Yeah.
outside of sports in general. At least I've never seen it right outside of sports personally. Like I haven't seen it outside of college sports, high school sports, et cetera, et cetera. And so when just set the tone at the very beginning with Brandon of this is different, right? Like we everybody needs help. Guys in general, like I told you, I have my psychology degree. Guys in general have a very hard time asking for help. Brandon would what a stud of a guy, by the way, because I've chatted with him quite a bit during man games. He was never going to ask for help, right? He
Right.
was never going to say, hey, can anybody help me out to get new clubs? Like he just was never going to happen. And I don't know any guy, truth be told, that would obviously do that. So one, you're creating this bond and this like second family, I guess is the best way that I want to put it. You're creating the second family of guys and individuals. And then obviously on girl games on the girl side, where it's an unspeakable bond,
Yeah.
right? It's like an unwritten rule of I'm going to help out. Like if that happened to Bobby, probably would have bought him a brand new set of clubs without even thinking twice about it, right? And you're the same way. Like you wanted to do something immediately when you heard it happen, and I think that's what you're gaining with man games. It's much more than competing. It's
Yeah.
much
It's like
more
healthy
than
male bonding, right? And I think that it's a lot of times now as males, like the people that we hang out with, you talked about how you hadn't seen Cody since high school and you guys were best friends. As you get older and life happens, you spend a lot more time with people that you have to spend time with rather than people that you would like to spend time with. So, I mean, even Brendan and I, we started working in the same place. So we had to have a relationship. But now for the last several years, we haven't worked at the same place. And that's a relationship that I want to maintain, right? And there are other work relationships where you still care about them, but even like we moved from one neighborhood to another and I had really good friends in that neighborhood and I just haven't been able to spend time with them. But this is a way where you can get together with like-minded men and you share, and I wouldn't even say that we all share similar values outside of sports, right? Like I think you have a bunch of people from different religions, you have people from a bunch of different areas of the country with a bunch of different political beliefs. You have people with different, even racial and ethnical backgrounds, and we all come together in this one area. And then I don't think there's anybody at Man Games that if something like that, something bad happened, that I wouldn't want to do something, that I wouldn't want to step up and help them. And whether I met them there for the first time or I've known them for years.
but and this is what I mean. Like that's what sports does.
Yeah.
That's what a team does, right? Like when I talk about lightning in a bottle, like you start in by definition, the way that I look at it from an entrepreneur, you don't get lightning in a bottle by I want it to look like this. It's you start something this way, But then as you go down that road, you're starting to see it evolve into something else. And you're like, I can't believe this organically happened.
Yeah.
Right. You just wanted, you're like, look, I got a good group of friends that are really competitive or really good. I think we're better than you. Like, let's just test this out. And then as that's grown and into what it is now, then it's like, no, like we are now friends. Like I've talked to Taylor probably 3-4 different times since then. Live in Ohio. I've talked to Brad a handful of times, talked to Matt Pace a handful of times. People that I have no idea who the hell they are. Kimball, outside of man games, right? Like you just don't ever get those relationships outside of something like that. And then it's both from like a networking perspective to I want, even though we compete against each other, I want to see you win. Because that's what I mean. The difference from now to when you're in high school is in high school, it's like, I don't want you to win because if you win, that hurts me and my potential. As you get older and mature, and it's like that is kind of taken off the table. Like I loved playing against you because I was like, man, I miss playing with, soda sauce. And, you looked really frustrated when we played you because I don't think you got a bucket. Your team did the rest, but you look frustrated, and I'm like, man, if he was on today, like we would be smoked.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I shot well against you, but my whole thing going into that game was like, I'm going to lock down Bobby. So
right,
so offensively, it was like
all of your energy went to Bobby. Like it was, you had, I think you shot once, and it was just a wide open shot, and it's just because I think the rebound came to you, and you're already at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
So, but it's like that's taken off the table, and I didn't know. I knew that I really liked you and loved you as a human being before, right? Just from the mutual respect that we've had in high school. I just knew that you were a stand-up guy. You were a competitor. You wanted to do good. But now that the arm's length, and you may never even have felt it, but the arm's length is gone with me because we played the same position. It's just how I was wired. I just couldn't let you in, right? Now that that's gone, it's like, man, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Right. It's competitive. You want to win, but listen, we're not fighting for a spot, right? I'm not fighting for a playing spot. I'm not fighting for tick time. I'm not like happy and sad if you miss. Like I'm just like, oh, he missed, right? Oh, let's get the ball.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I said, it's sports was a weird thing, man, because you have to be happy and sad at the exact same time in my mind, or keep 10 feet distance from the people that you're competing against for your position. True competitors, I think, do that, or maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I feel the same way for sure. And then again, I think I add that element of where I was an outsider coming in, and so I think that I was even more on guard and less willing to let people in and try to get into other people's world. So I think that for sure it's been fun to do this after the fact. And even in college, like I ran into some guys that we would play against that were our rivals in high school or whatever it is. And then we're taking the same accounting class in college. And I was like, I hated you in high school. And it kind of hurts to know that you're a good person. Like before the game, I had to create a character out of you that you were probably beating up nerds, or you were probably like making fun of people that you shouldn't, and you were probably doing drugs or selling drugs, whatever. I have to make up this persona so that I can hate you.
Right.
And then now it's like the exact opposite. It's like, what could I do for you, man? Like, how do we make your life better? Like it's so different.
Right. How can we connect? Right. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with like Chad Spencer. I'm like, dude, you're such a great guy. I want to work with you in any capacity that I can. Like it's like that phase of life, right? You're seeing these people and you're just like, whatever I could do to help you, just let me know. Like I'm available, and it's like that because like back then I had to create my mind that you didn't earn where you were at.
Yeah.
Because you might not even know this, but I was an outsider coming into Jordan. I lived in West Jordan. Yeah, so I lived in West Jordan. The only reason why I went to Jordan is my older brother went there to play football because we knew one of the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into basketball tryouts my freshman year, I think I just had to be there. Like my mom had to pick both of us up. I had to be there. It was right around that same time. I was like, okay, well, I'll just try out. And so I made it. So very similar to you, like I got interjected into these people that I never knew. I didn't know Cody Larson. I didn't know Bobby Macy. I didn't know Chris Cassidy. I actually knew Chris because we played a lot against each other in travel ball, but didn't know these guys at all. Like didn't know Quinn, Bradford, who was
Yeah.
an amazing basketball player. Didn't know Kenny Berry or Darren O'Brien, didn't know any of these cats, right? Nick Howard, didn't know any of them. So going into that sophomore year, I felt like I was established. And obviously, Bobby and I hit it off immediately. Like, I think after the first practice, Bobby and I have been best friends since then in freshman year.
Yeah.
But I always had to create that persona that you didn't earn it the way that I did. You're not putting in the time that I'm putting in. I always recognized game, like from a shooting perspective. Like, if you were a good shooter, I guess let me put it this way: I'm that competitive where if you beat me, and I feel like you truly beat me, like beat me stand up, I have no problem walking over there, giving you a handshake, and being the first person to say like, "Yeah, you beat me." Very
Yeah.
similar to like Carson in volleyball. Very similar to like you guys when we played you in pickleball. Like, yeah, like no going around that one. But then when we lose 2 games in spike ball, like 25-24, it's like, I don't want to be by you right now. Like, you might be a really good person, but like, get away from me. Right. Like, because that's a winnable game. Like, that's something where I
Yeah.
don't feel like it was truly earned from a competitive perspective. And if things would have gone a little bit differently, like, we're winning that game, right? Very similar to basketball, very similar to all the sports that we played. That's how I felt across the board. It's how it's always been. But like I said, a lot of that is taken off the table now. And I truly believe, like you do, as the trajectory that Man Games is going, these will now be formatively the best years of our life. We don't have to be the generation that looks back and say, to our kids, high school is it, man. Like, enjoy high
Yeah.
school, because it's not going to get any better than that. Like, I hated when older people said that.
Yeah.
And then, or if they went to college, they'd say the same thing about college. Like, you better enjoy college. I don't want that for my life. And I don't want that to be taught to my kids or to anybody else that I know. I want them to truly believe that their next day is going to be the best day of their life. And like I said, I don't know if you planned on it to be like this in Man Games, but you sure do have lightning in a bottle in that perspective, that it's almost to a point where words can't express or explain what you feel and get out of Man Games. You could easily say we compete, it's a great networking event, but that's not it, man. That's not how I feel in my heart and hearts. It's way more than that, in such a great way that, like I've told you before, any way that I could help support, help get the word out there, bring more competitors, bring more sponsors, whatever it needs to be. Like, I'm all in Man Games, and I can't ever imagine missing one moving forward.
That's so awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to explain it to people, and a lot of time because you're like, look, it's $250, and thanks to sponsors like yourself. So I do want to transition into that a little bit about what you do, but so it's $250 to get there. But when you throw together the reservations, the food, the swag bag, the everything, the golf, everything, I think it came out to like $494 a person is what it was. So you're paying $250. The cost per person was about $494, and just the swag bag alone was pushing it. And so,
It's so dope too. That's my favorite water bottle. If I ever lose that water bottle, I'm in trouble.
well, I have a connection, so
Yeah,
you
if
won't
I
don't.
lose that water bottle, I'm in deep trouble, man. It's like my favorite thing. My kids want to steal it, I don't let them. Like, it's when we got done and my wife knew that we, spent $250, I was like, I think I got way more back just in snacks in the bag. The bag alone's amazing. It's such a great travel bag for business people. I was like, this is my new favorite bag when I travel now.
That's awesome.
Uh, Everything about the bag there. Oh, that CBD cream. I don't know who put that together, but that is unbelievable. Like, my legs, hips, shoulder would not be where it is now, and would not be able to compete the way that I did that second day without it. Like, it was, yeah, that swag bag was awesome. I did not expect it to be like that. I literally thought it was going to be kind of like, when you go to tryouts and you're just there,
Yeah,
and you're really sweaty, and it's like, okay, go to another one, and then you're really sweaty and you go to another one. No, like, it was really laid out nice from like start to finish.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know that you and I have both done a ton of events, and usually the swag bag is like a drawstring bag that has chapstick in it and a towel that has a big logo that you don't care for and all this stuff on it. And so I wanted to not do that. I wanted it to be something where, and the prizes too, I want them to be something where it's like, I've always wanted to buy that, but I've never really had the guts or felt good about doing that, and so I'm super glad that I got it now because I've wanted something like that, and so that's kind of my mindset going in of how can I get as many things like that as possible, and so when I got that backpack in, I was like, I'm kind of a nerd around backpacks, and I've got a bunch of them. And so when this one came in, I was like, "This is it." Like, I really like how this is laid out. I like the material. I like everything. This is something that I really enjoy myself personally. So I hope everybody else enjoys it, and then let's fill it with stuff that I like too. So that's kind of the reasoning behind all of that. But it's good stuff.
No, love the backpack. I'm a backpack guy too. I think I have 5 backpacks, not including that one.
Nice. That's
I'm
awesome.
always finding it better because when I go on my trips, it's always like a day or 2 trip.
Yeah.
So you're trying to pack for a night as well as get your stuff in there, and you want it to be comfortable while you're walking through the airport or running through the airport, which happens countless times. But no, I'm a monster fan of that backpack. I think it has so many different compartments. Plus, it's great for like laptop. I think it's perfect.
That's great. So tell me, let's talk about you for a minute in your profession. So ERC specialist is what you brought up from the sponsorship perspective. It sounds like you've communicated with a bunch of people outside of Man Games. I don't know if all that was just business or just because you got to know them and they were good dudes, but I know that our company is looking into it. We're just in kind of the mayhem season of our world right now. So we have
Yeah.
started that process into looking at it. So that employee retention credit, what is it, and who can work with you? I mean, who would be best to work with you?
Yeah. So the employer retention tax credit is really this hidden gem that's out there. It's the last of the COVID relief funding programs. A business can get up to $26,000 per W-2 employee. And it's really forgotten about. That's what I mean by like a hidden gem. Like this came out with the CARES Act alongside the PPP loan. The reason why most people forgot about it is how it was introduced in March of 2020 to what it looks like now is a colossal difference. And to give you a perspective of how people aren't informed of this, because most people think, well, the bigger companies probably know about it. No, they don't. I was on the phone today with a company that has 230 different stores, and they're Arby's, Carl's Jr., Jamba Juice. They have well over 4,000 full-time employees, and it's separated between all these crazy different entities. So we're trying to figure out if they will or will not qualify depending on how big they are, and depending on how each individual entity is set up. But they have no clue, right? And this
Yeah.
is the end of 2022, and this is they did retrospect to put it out there. They did $62 million in payroll. So
Wow.
we're talking a monster of a company have zero clue. So the rules is if your business was affected by COVID, well, I guess let me back up. You no longer have to lose money in order to qualify for this. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that most people don't know or understand. If
Because
they've
that's what
heard
I had heard initially, right? I had heard is like you had to have
correct.
a loss in order to even start this. And so when you brought this up, that's why I was like, well, wait a minute. When you
Yeah.
explained it at Man Games, I was like, I need to talk to him about this.
Yeah, and that's happened quite a bit. Like I said, I've connected with a lot of people outside of Man Games. So they've revised this and amended it so many different times since March of 2020. And to kind of give you like a brief synopsis of all of it is when it was introduced in March of 2020, they said initially you could not have the PPP loan or the ERC. You had to have a 50% reduction from 2020 to 2019, and they're only paying people $5,000 per W-2 employee, and you had to have under 100 employees. Fast forward to now, you can have the PPP and the ERC, so you can qualify that way. So that's another thing that people think, well, I got the PPP, so I can't get the ERC. Yes, you can. You no longer have to lose money in order to qualify. They now have 2 other ways that you can qualify: supply chain disruption, which we can go into that like in depth crazy, but we don't have the time. And then full or partial shutdown or mandate, which that also includes capacity issues, social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then they increased the amount that they were going to pay people. So in 2021, you can now get up to 21,000 per W-2 employee. So when you add the 21 plus the 5, 2021 and 2020, that's where you get the 26,000 per W-2 employee. So the reason why they continue to amend this and revise it is because nobody was taking it. So that's why it looks completely different than what it does right now. And now the other reason why most people don't know about it or they haven't heard of it is because the IRS doesn't have a safe outlet for it. With the PPP loan, their safe outlet was the banks. And little did most people know is that the banks were actually profiting a large sum on every PPP loan that they did. Banks can't do these, okay? So then they go, okay, well, my accountant or CPA's got to know about it. Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't. What I can tell you is that roughly 90% or most CPAs and accountants, they don't do payroll. This is a payroll tax credit, right? You're getting paid a refund on the payroll taxes that you paid in wages to your employees. So unless if your CPA and accountant does payroll and they stayed up to date with all these changes, they're just never going to know about it, right?
Yeah.
So the person that I chatted with today, the reason why I got connected with that big company is because I helped a lady that had 5 different Carl's Juniors, and she's getting a massive son back, and then she knows this person. It's kind of this weird word of mouth credit where it's really hard to like cold call somebody and say, hey, did you get this? Because they're like, well, I don't know, you click, right?
Yeah.
Or
and I don't know what that is, right? Like,
right. Or if you go to the IRS.gov website and just type in ERC, it literally says that it hasn't made any changes since March of 2020. Like it says that it's not up to date. It's literally what it says at the very top. Not up to date since March of 2020. So then how do you find your information? You get what I mean? So they're not making it easy on you. So it's definitely a word of mouth credit. It's a referral credit. It's who do you know? But and the other thing that they did is they moved it from 100 employees to 500 full-time employees. So
under 500 is when you can qualify for this.
Yeah, so 500 full-time, and that's key because we've had tons of people that have, 400 full-time, but then like 900 part-time. Well, guess what? You still qualify and your part-time wages qualify. It's just their stipulation is you have to have under 500 part-time. Another reason why most people don't know about it is they're not wanting the bigger companies to get this, right? They're not wanting or willing to pay out those type of funds because $26,000 per W-2 employee, you get, one of these big chains that qualify for it. That's a lot of money that can come back to you. So it's been rewarding on my end. It's been something new. I know you're in the Medicare space. We're also in the Medicare space as well as, the financial services with retirement space. But doing the ERC, helping these small businesses who have truly been affected, excuse me, by the pandemic. Like I still don't think we've seen the effects of the pandemic yet. I don't think we're going to see it for, probably into 2023, maybe into 2024. I just don't think that we've really, that dust has settled from what actually happened and how it's affected all of our businesses. So I don't know any business that doesn't qualify. Let's just put it that way. I've done dentists, construction, restaurants, pallets, manufacturing, insurance groups, was on a call today with a law firm. I don't know how most people weren't affected.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like the supply chain disruption. I know we can go into that, but when you were talking about it with me, what specifically came to my mind is that once COVID hit, we work with seniors, and once you started saying like, hey, especially like they were the high risk population, they don't want to be coming into offices. We had to shift the way that we did business from everything for the most part in person to almost exclusively virtually at that point. And so we had to invest in certain technologies and change the way that we did business because of COVID. And so you brought that up of like, look, it's not necessarily like, look, you need lumber and you can't get lumber. There's a different expanded view of what supply chain disruption means.
Yep, correct. So very similar to us, like we would go and see, people in schools, right? That was kind of our financial niche is the 403B market, and where we'd go help people out with their 403Bs and pension and life insurance. Well, guess what? Schools were closed.
Yeah.
And then when schools came back, they were very limited capacity, and they definitely didn't let you in the door because you weren't like a staff employee, right? So how we saw our clients was completely different, very similar to how it is in the Medicare space. Like people don't know this, but typically you're getting somebody from a Medicare perspective by doing like a dinner seminar at, an Olive Garden or at a Golden Corral or whatever it is. Like seminars are big, and try to getting it's how you were disrupted, right? Yeah. And how you did business in 2019 to how you had to do business in 2020 and 2021. They're no longer going to punish you for being an entrepreneur and pivoting. right?
Mhm.
So that's why they added those ways and they didn't get away from you losing revenue in order to qualify. If you lost revenue, you can still qualify for this. There's 3 ways. You only have to qualify under one, but they're no longer going to punish business owners and entrepreneurs who are capable of pivoting and still being either keeping themselves afloat, not having that big of a loss, or maybe even being profitable. Like, you no longer have to lose money in order to qualify for this. We're not going to punish you for, pivoting, right?
Yeah.
Pivoting and finding a way, I guess, is the best way to put it. Figuring it out and finding a way. They're not going to, ding you on that anymore, which I truly love. And it is, even though people that made money in the pandemic, they're still hurting, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they made a profit, cool, but it doesn't mean that they're not hurting. They're not still living paycheck to paycheck. So it's a nice refund that comes to them. That comes to them for each quarter they qualify. It takes the IRS 4 to 7 months to send the money. And this seemingly doesn't really necessarily have a deadline, besides amending your payroll tax or amending your 941s, which has a 3-year deadline. But also you can come up to the fact of, maybe the money runs out, or just like anything with the government, they could just pull the program, right? Or just
Yeah.
stop it, right? Very similar to how they did the PPP. So I'm
I
urging people to get it in sooner rather than later. Get in the queue sooner rather than later with the IRS. That's why it's taking them so long. They are saying if you are filed and say the program goes away, you still will get it if you file, right? Even though
Yeah.
it takes 4 to 7 months. So it's a new way to connect with people. It's the way that I connected with Taylor. It's the way, Brad was seeing if he qualified. Unfortunately, he doesn't, because he's just a single member LLC, or single member S corp, and he's the only one on his payroll, and he owns the majority. He has 51% or more ownership, so his wage wouldn't count. So connecting with a lot of these guys, trying to help them out the best I can, and obviously, similar to you, want to do good, right? I'm a big believer, the more good I put out there, the more I'll receive.
Yeah.
So kind of the perspective that I have on all of that.
Maybe you can shed a little bit of light too on, I know that if it's something that I don't understand, this kind of takes us back to like the high school thing. Like, if it's something that I don't understand or I'm not necessarily comfortable with, I kind of shut down and like I don't even want to pursue it. Is it something that I can trust? And especially when we're talking about the government and government programs, and then going into my business's financials, even if I'm not doing anything wrong, I think that our tax system is set up in a way where it's like, I don't know. I always feel like I'm going to do everything to the letter of the law, but I still feel I'm not sure if I did it right. And so, is this something where there's going to be some big audit that comes through if you're applying for this? I think that there are some more maybe conservative sided business owners that don't necessarily want to put all their information out there. What are the ramifications of this? And are there any to doing this versus not doing this? Essentially, is it worth the return to put in the time and to dig up the financials and to give everything over?
Absolutely. Yeah. So fabulous question. So let's just look at the statistics, right? First and foremost, the PPP loan, there are 16 million businesses that did the PPP loan. And maybe it was higher. I could be wrong. They have a 4% audit ratio. And if you know anything about the PPP loan, it was very easily to fraudulently get. Very, very, very easy to fraudulently get. This ERC is very hard to fraudulently get. And the reason why I say that is because, one, you're not putting up a ton of financials. Like, all we need is a payroll report and your 941s. And then when we figure out the calculation from those two, and then we send it into the IRS, they cross-reference that to the 941s that you submitted, in 2020 and 2021. And if it doesn't match up, or if you didn't have a 941, then they don't pay it out.
Yeah.
So it's an overpayment in payroll taxes. So you actually get the letter, what's called a CP 210 form, and it says you have an overpayment of $38,000 for this particular quarter, and then you get another one for another quarter, Q3 of 2020. You have an overpayment of 21,000, right, or whatever it is, right? So, can it be audited? Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong, anything can be audited. But I'm never going to say anything's audit proof, right? Quote unquote. There's nothing that's audit proof, because you could just get pulled out of a random hat and get, swept by, the IRS to do an audit. But what I can tell you is, it's very difficult for you to, you can't even fraudulently get this. It's not very difficult. You can't fraudulently get this from a 941 perspective, right? B, we come with audit protection like every other company would. We help you, in the case of an audit, we help you with the findings, the financials, the paperwork, etc. And two, it's something that the IRS already has.
Yeah.
So they have your 941s. So comparing that to like the PPP, because it's still a CARES Act, right? The PPP, the stats are showing only 4% out of 16 million were audited. And then in regards to the ERC, I personally can't imagine that it's going to be 4%, truthfully. And I still think 4% is astronomically low for an audit because of the sheer fact that, look, it's almost common knowledge. Has lumber been disrupted, right?
Yeah.
Is the construction company been disrupted? Is the car industry disrupted? Go drive by a dealership and tell me how many cars are on the dealership. That's not by design. That's because they have supply chain disruption. Restaurants. If you ever try to go to a restaurant, it was shut down. In-house dining was shut down. So they automatically qualify with the, shut down the in-house dining. It's these things that it's very well known that this is what's happening in the world today.
Yeah.
Right. So how are you going to, if someone was going to audit that, it's like, well, these are the guidelines, right? I was shut down. I didn't have in-house dining. I can't get lumber. I can't get manufacturing. I used to see people this way. I had to change it this way because of the scene and setting. Like I couldn't do seminars at Golden Corral, or I couldn't see people in schools or what have you, right? So I don't want to say it's common sense, but it's kind of like it's the world common sense. It's what we're dealing with. Try to buy a couch these days. How long does it take to buy a couch? I know I'm shopping for one right now. It's like a 4-month delay just to get a couch. Like that's obscene. You never heard of that before. And it has to do with all the supply chain disruption that's going on in the world. So it's very well documented. If you were to get audited, I can't imagine you don't win, unless if you somehow, some way just fraudulently said that I had this disruption and I didn't, or I don't know. It's really hard for me to think of scenarios because it's hard for me to do that. Right.
Well, like you said, you're comparing stuff that is already there. It's it's been submitted. The IRS already has it. You already have it. They're comparing that, saying, yep, we have what we have. And you're right.
And you're going to qualify under supply chain disruption, or you're going to qualify under full or partial shutdown or mandate. And then you could intertwine them, right? Maybe one quarter you had the revenue reduction to qualify, and say the next quarter you had supply chain disruption, and the next quarter you had a full or partial shutdown or mandate. Like it could be that intertwined. Once again, you also have to realize that they already allotted this money. This money's already been allotted. Like they want this money to go out into the economy. They want this money to be influx. They know what's going on out there. And there's just not like a great outlet in order to do so and to qualify for this. They wouldn't have revised it this many times and put this into there if they weren't going to have people like restaurants and construction and automotive and law firms and et cetera, et cetera. Like they would not have that in there if they weren't expecting them to do it. I mean, Forbes came out with an article in March of this year in 2020, and it specifically said like 70 to 80% of small businesses that have under 500 employees would qualify for this at least one quarter.
Yeah. So is it quarter based? So if I was disrupted in the first quarter, that qualifies, but not in the second, then I would only apply for that one quarter?
Yeah, so great question. We make it as simple as possible. We have you fill out a questionnaire. And that questionnaire goes over the 3 ways that you can qualify: loss in revenue, supply chain disruption, full or partial shutdown, or mandate. Specific to all 3, if you say, yes, I had a loss in revenue, it will ask you, well, which quarter, right? Supply chain disruption. Which quarters did you have supply chain disruption in? Full or partial shutdown or mandate. When were you shut down? Restaurants, it's super simple. It's like all of 2020, right? Yeah. And then even in 2021, it's like, well, we weren't all the way shut down, but we had capacity issues and we had to do social distancing. We had to do them for these quarters, right? Like here in Ohio, you could do full or partial shutdown or mandate as a restaurant all the way through all of 2020 and the first 2 quarters of 2021. In 2020 or in 2021 in Q3, that's when they kind of started lifting all of that. So, but then again, that quarter, supply chain disruption. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know any restaurant that hasn't had supply chain disruption with everything: cups, straws, silverware, just
Napkins. Yeah, we had some that like went over to the Target. A restaurant went over to the nearby Target to get napkins because they couldn't get napkins.
correct. Yeah. Same thing with food too. I have a bakery that he said that he would have to bulk order his milk, and then by the time he'd get his milk, it would already be expired. Well, guess
Mm.
what? I can't use that, and I'm a bakery. I need milk. So it's like I said, I don't want common sense to be the determining factor on that, because I'm a big believer that common sense isn't common for everybody.
Yeah.
But just I would say take a look around and see if you're a business owner, if you know business owners. It's pretty hard to say that they weren't effective. And where a lot of companies aren't wanting to take the ERC is because their profit margins were so high, and they're stuck on the old way of how you had to qualify for it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're stuck on. They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, I have a couple dealerships that I'm trying to work with, but they're like, they've had the best 2 years of their existence, but they can't get new cars.
Yeah.
It's literally a black and white scenario of supply chain disruption, but they're having a hard time justifying qualifying for the ERC because they're like, well, we had the best 2 years of our lives and we had to consistently hire people. But that's not how it is anymore, right? Like, reward yourself for retaining employees and adding new employees on. That's what the employee retention credit's all about.
Yeah.
So it's been fun, man. I've had very little people when I explain it and then get on the call with them I can do this in like a 5 to 7 minute phone call. Very little people that say no. It almost shocks me when they say, yeah, I don't want to move forward with this. I'm like, maybe I said something wrong. Maybe you didn't actually hear me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know that we're looking into it. Again, it's our crazy busy time with the annual enrollment period in the Medicare space. But I know as soon as we get through that, we got everything that you sent over. So I think that we're gonna at least submit that and see what comes back. Right. I mean, worst case scenario is you say, oh yeah, like you didn't qualify for anything. Right. We're not. You just said there were a couple of options. We could pay up front once we realize that we're getting a credit, or we can pay on the back end once we receive it. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's also the best part about this. It's literally no cost. It doesn't cost you anything to find out if you qualify. It doesn't cost you anything to find out how much you qualify for. Like, we don't even have an agreement that goes out there until after you get your approval amount from us. So this is after you filled out the questionnaire, after you submitted your 941s, your payroll report, and then your stated PPP loan information. And then we say, hey, Kate, yeah, you're going to get 170,000, or you're going to get 4.2 million, or whatever it is. At that point in time, we send you the contracts and we say, okay, do you want to pay now or pay later? You can completely walk away and no cost to you whatsoever. But we have two options. We have pay now, pay later. Our most popular is definitely a pay later option because of the sheer fact that it takes the IRS 4 to 7 months to send the money. And that's 15% of the total credit when the credit is received. So we don't get paid till you get paid, right? So people really love that type of option. Or if you want a discount on the fee, you could do 10% of the total credit up front before we send the documents to the IRS. And then I get this all the time. Well, if I pay up front and then the IRS denies it, or the IRS wants to reduce it, which, by the way, has never happened to us. So those two worries have never happened. But it's in the contract. If that were to happen and they reduce it, well, then we would reduce the fee and we would refund you. Or if they completely deny it, then we will obviously give you your money back, right? So it's no risk. It's risk-free. Fill out a questionnaire that, truthfully, if you know your business, you get through it in 5 to 7 minutes, no problem. And then after that, it's just uploading your payroll documents. And that's what I mean. You asked the question, like, getting all my financials out there. That's another misconception that people have. People think that they have to submit W-2s. They got to submit, like, all this crazy paperwork. No, it is call your payroll company, or if you have online access, you pull your 941s and you pull your payroll reports for those 6 quarters, and then you're done. That, even in essence, takes maybe 5 minutes. And people overblow that a lot until they actually see what they need, financial wise. So it's literally the easiest thing I've ever seen. From a perspective that people wanted to do this with me, I think it's the modern day gold rush. I think that, there's 32 million small businesses out there, something along those lines. And we've only done, our company is one of the largest, if not the largest in the nation, and we've done like 20,000 businesses. So I
Wow.
mean, just put that in perspective of what is possible and who you can help. And I think it's that low because of the sheer fact that it's not like a cold calling type of credit. It's not a Google ad type of credit. It is truthfully who I know this person. And that's how I've built it is I went to my initial network, and then once we help them, then I'm like, okay, who else do you know? And it's just continued to domino that way. And I can't imagine it being really any different. I think it's who you know, and everybody knows somebody. It's funny, just pull out your phone, go through all your contacts, and you'll find probably a half a dozen business owners that you didn't even know about.
Yeah. Well, it's super cool. And I appreciate you taking the time to explain it, because I do think that a lot of people would benefit from it. Obviously, our channel isn't massive by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll definitely get this out to everybody that we can. And you also have that shirt. So Katie Strong,
Yeah,
sister-in-law,
yeah. My sister-in-law, my baby
leukemia.
sister-in-law. Yep, she's got leukemia. Wanted to give her a shout out. It's a tough battle. She got it last year when she was 27 years old. And actually, when she turned 28, the month after is when she had to end up shaving her head. So she lost all of her hair. And then, her sisters did the same thing. They shaved their heads. My other brother-in-law there's a ton of people that shaved their heads. I shaved my head. That's why I got the bald look going and why I'm wearing a hat.
Nice.
But she's battling, man. I have all the faith in the world in her. I think that she's the strongest person I've ever seen. I want to raise awareness any way, shape that I can. I mean, this shirt's actually extremely dirty because I wore it to bed last night, but I knew that we were going to do this. And I said, I have to, if I'm going to be on camera, it's going to be posted out there. Like, she needs to see that people are thinking about her, love her, know her, want her to continue to fight, want her to win this battle. And everybody else that's, struggling and battling right now with cancer. It's, it's hard for me not to tear up, but there's people out there that love you and want you to get better, and it's a crazy world out there, and I could never fathom this has happened to our family, but she's strong enough to get through this, and the family's strong enough to get through this, so we're hoping for the best, and we're all Katie strong at the end of the day.
How can we help? How can people help?
You can help by donating blood. There's a blood shortage, right? So donate blood. I mean, she gets blood regularly. Donate blood. You can go to bethematch.com, which helps for anybody that is going to get a bone marrow transplant. You could bethematch.com. It's all free, very simple. They send you out a packet. You swab your cheeks inside. You send it back, and then you get in this database where you could be called at any point in time, and it could be somebody from a different country. It could be somebody in your same state. It's like, hey, yeah, are you still interested in giving bone marrow? Because we found a match, right? And that's what it's all about, is match wise. So Be the Match is a good one. Giving blood is another good one. And then if you wanted to give to the Katie Strong, I don't have a nonprofit set up yet, but that's in the works to get a nonprofit set up. But she does have a Venmo account. She had a GoFundMe, but I don't think it's active right now just because we ran out of time. But she does have a Venmo account. It's all on my Instagram.
Okay.
So if anybody wanted to go to my Instagram, just Nathan Snarr is my handle on Instagram. And then if you want to learn about that, you want to learn about the ERC credit, that's also on my Instagram. You can contact me through there. And anything and everything helps. Prayers help. Believe in the power of prayer, positive vibes, thoughts, all that stuff. Any way that anyone could help, whether it's her or somebody else that's going through a cancer battle, please do so.
Yeah, we had a we had a really good friend who ended up getting leukemia as well. And it's interesting. We go through our lives and we are identified in certain ways, right? So I like to consider myself an athlete, right? So I'm identify as an athlete. That's something that I really enjoy and that I would like to be seen as, and to go through something to where I try to imagine my life where if they're like, really? Like, how could he have ever been considered an athlete? Look at him, right? So once the friends or once people get this diagnosis, or my mom was a breast cancer survivor, they kind of now get identified as that, right? It kind of takes over their life as to where now this is it. And so what is Katie like to do outside of just this now? I know it's a tough time and she's going through a lot. What does she enjoy? What was she like? What is she like as a person outside of just the leukemia diagnosis?
Man, she's such a bright light. She's so much fun to be around. I mean, she played college basketball as well. She's a crazy competitor, ultra athletic. She was always working out. And that was the crazy part about this diagnosis is she was extremely fit and extremely healthy. I mean, I always tease her because I'm 6'2", and she always says like she's 5'10" or 5'11". I'm like, Katie, you are taller than me. You are not like 5'10". Like I am 6'2", and I don't care how much I slouch. Like or stand up straight. Like you're always going to be taller than me. And she was so healthy, and to get rocked, her world rocked like that out of nowhere was just. It's like you didn't see signs coming, right? It just happened, and that's what happens with cancer. But outside of that, she's outside of that cancer, which I don't identify her as somebody who's battling with cancer. I identify her as an amazing sister, right? An amazing sister-in-law to me. She's always been great to me. An unbelievable aunt, an unbelievable daughter to her parents, an unbelievable loving relationship with her boyfriend Craig, and just overly passionate about putting smiles on people's faces. Like no matter where we went, whether we were out, whether we were at a sporting event, she went to the Ohio State University. She always found a way to make sure that you were taken care of. And it's pretty rare in an individual. So to see her on this flip side, to be where we are taking care of her, I know it's tough for her, but she's adjusting well. But yeah, outside of that, she's an amazing human being, man. She's a bright light. She's got a lot of life to live. And I can't wait till she beats this because she's going to get right back on that course. And, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Is the
Well,
best way to.
yeah, thanks for taking the time to share just the story in general, right? Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that we don't even realize, and so if we can bring it to our attention, then that's when people can really help. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And we've been going now. I know I've taken a lot of your night, and you're on a different time zone. I do have 3 more selfish questions. If you listen to the last one with Brad, they're going to be the same questions.
Dude, I could talk to you all night. I can't believe we've been doing this for 2 hours.
Isn't it crazy how fast it goes? I'm always like, yeah, like it'll probably take 45 minutes. Here's what I want to cover. And then 2 hours in, I was like, I still could go for another 2 hours. Like it's just.
Dude, but similar. I mean, we've known each other, bro. If you think about it, since what 2004,
Yeah.
right? Like almost coming up on 20 years. Like we had a lot to catch up on and reminisce about. And like I said, I don't want to say like I'm ultra proud of where you are because that some people can take that as condescending, but I'm so happy and proud of the person you've become. And I've been in those stages where you're talking in front of a ton of people, and the way you handled yourself, the whole man games, you acted as if you've done this your entire life. And you're just an incredible human being, man. I'm so ultra proud of seeing who you become and allowing myself to be associated with you. It's been it's going to be a great friendship moving forward. It's definitely not going to stop here. So I'm super happy that we were able to do this. I know we try to do it in person so many times, but we have families, kids got in the way, and
Yeah.
never get in the way, right? Obligations get in the way of who the type of people we are. You being there for your kids' event, I was like, dude, I'm a family first kind of guy, always and forever. Like you go and be with your family, you're not missing any event.
Yeah.
Right. I'm big on you don't do that under any null circumstances. And I know you feel the same way. It's just it's been a true honor, my friend. It
No,
truly has.
I echo those same thoughts, and it's awesome. I think again, relationships are why I think we're here, and so I want to cultivate those and develop as many deep relationships as I can, and not just that surface level stuff. So I appreciate that. So here are the 3 questions. Number 1, who from Man Games would you like to see on this and doing the similar thing that you just did on this
Who
podcast?
on Man Games, and is it outside of my team or?
Well, Brad said his entire team. So if you want someone on your team, I think anybody on your team would be great. I've talked to Alex already. I'll talk to Cody and Bobby. I've talked to Bobby about it already as well. So let's go outside of your team at Man Games. Who would you like to hear from?
Outside of my team, I want to pick Weston. He was like this very like just didn't know what you were gonna get, and then you get into the event and you're just like, wow, dude, you're a freaking stud. Like, are you kidding me? I think the first time I played him, it was a pickleball, and he was like, oh man, it was either pickleball or spike ball. And he was basically acting like he had like a stiff back and a limp and whatnot. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Like, this is gonna be a good time. We don't have to go crazy. And then he kills you, and you're like, what the hell happened? And then I got with him. Him and I chatted a lot during home run derby. And I know he played baseball in high school. And then he gets up there and he's like cranking homers, and he was. And then in basketball, I'm like, well, he can't be good at basketball then. And then he's like, once again, he like walks up as if he's 45 years old and not like 25 years old. And I'm like, dude, like, you are a sleeper. Like, you are the definition of a freaking sleeper. Like, why? Like, once again, you're sizing everybody up, right? But like, I don't know if he did it on purpose.
He's playing the long con, man. He's playing the long con.
Oh my gosh, like he definitely psyched me out, because I expected one thing and he was the complete opposite in every event. I mean, in spike ball, I kept on telling him, and I guarantee he's gonna remember this. I was like, you are not allowed to be in the B bracket. Like, you do not allow to be in the B, because he destroyed us. Him and him only destroyed us. And he was like, I'm pretty good, but then he points to his A bracket. He's like, well, they're a lot better than me. I'm like, I don't even want to look over there, because if I see somebody that's better than you at spike ball, like, I don't want to go to the A bracket. I'll just stay in the B bracket and dominate in there. So,
I think both their teams went undefeated in spike ball.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. So he would be a fun one, man, because I'm interested to hear his story and what he's got going on in his life. Kyle is another one that I would love to hear more from, because he just super sharp dude, really good competitor, and he was like helping people as it went on. Like, I just love that in those type of people. Like, just, you knew he was a good-hearted guy to the soul.
Yeah.
So if I were to pick two, those would be my two. I'm a big fan of Taylor too. Taylor would be one that I would want to hear more from, because I think that he could. He can give a lot inside and outside of man games. And then Chad. I know he didn't compete, but I'd love to hear Chad's answer.
Chad's great. Okay, well, I'll do my best to get them all on here. See what we can pull together.
I'll recruit him if you want. I'm in it.
Perfect. All right. Question number 2. Who would you want to see at man games that was not at man games this round? It can be a person you know. It can be a celebrity. It can be who would you like to see at the next man games?
And it could be a celebrity?
Yeah, if you want. Well, let's do like a real person that you know, and then also a celebrity.
Okay, so one person, and I don't know him particularly well, but when I saw after day one of like the array of games that we had and what we were playing, I was like, you know what? Preston Richards would be baller at this.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know him particularly well. Like, I know him and he knows me. We're acquaintances, and we knew each other a little bit in high school because he was so much younger than me. But from a competitive perspective, once again, you want to see somebody that's pretty versed in all of them. I just think that he would be. And I actually don't think I know he would be, because he's that skilled of an athlete. So somebody that I kind of know but don't know, I would not only want him to play, I'd also want him to be on my team. Which,
there you go.
I think we should probably do like a draft maybe at some point.
Awesome.
Because that would be like a lot, or like a trade. Like, at any point in time, we could trade teammates for like the right price or points. I don't know. That'd be creative.
That's another wrinkle.
Yeah. So I would love to see that. Celebrity wise, I mean, my biggest celebrity ever is always going to be Michael Jordan. Yeah. And I would just, from a competitive perspective, I would love to see him in like a pickleball event just to see how he would react. And I don't know if he plays pickleball, and I don't know if he's good at pickleball, but I'm just like, I'm thinking of him trying to play pickleball, and he's not good, but he's that like ultra competitive that I don't know if he would just find a way to win. Like, I don't know.
That's a great answer. All right, last question, then I'll let you go. What does it mean to you to be a man?
What does it mean to me to be a man? I watched a great podcast not too long ago with Shia LaBeouf, and it was a very humbling podcast of him, and it was him with I think John Bernthal. Yeah, that's his name, John Bernthal. And he talked a lot about, what makes you a man. And I resonated a lot with him when he said, what makes you a man is when you become responsible for others. And once again, it kind of went back to like a service base, right? Responsible for others. And whether that's your kids, whether that's, friends that you are going to help along the way, family members, what have you. I think that's the definition of being a man is being responsible for others and being vulnerable to know when you're wrong, right? And being humbled enough to know when you're wrong and being able to admit that. And that's the true strength of a man. I think it's not always having the shield up. It's not always, never not crying. It's not always like, rub some dirt on it. I think you're becoming a man when you become most vulnerable. And that's what I love so much about man games, right? Because I think immediately we all got vulnerable when we gave that gift, or when you gave that gift to Brandon.
Yeah.
Because it hurts, right? I think everybody can relate to something that you love and treasure and precious, and it's like you're precious, and that's what you do, and you're a big fan of it, and you've had it for so long, and it had so much meaning to it. Like the bag had so much meaning to him, and now it's gone. Like it wasn't the wallet being stolen, it was like what the bag represented was stolen from him, and not the actual clubs and bag, because that could all be replaced, right? It was what it represented. And we were vulnerable of giving him this gift, and then he was vulnerable of showing that how much that meant to him, and he shed a couple tears, and it was hard not to get goosebumps and shed tears. And in essence, the group that we've made with Man Games is you are responsible for each other. And I think that's one of the hidden things that it's hard to explain. Like I feel responsible to help others in that group. I feel responsible to make sure that group moves forward. It doesn't die, doesn't dwindle, it doesn't go backwards. I want to be a pillar in that growth of helping as many, like you said, helping as many people as you possibly can, and being responsible for them. Not like it's my obligation responsible, because I think there's two different sides of being responsible, right? It's like I feel a connection with this person to help them when they need it. And I think that's what you had there. I think that it was very well represented across all the teams. And I feel it inside my family, not only with my kids, but with my wife and with my friends. And Bobby and Cody know that really well. I do everything and anything for them. And Cody and I have God knows how many stories of doing that exact same act of helping others, when nobody else would. And it's just this unique combination of people that you have in Man Games, and it's so much fun to see, because I think when you got the right people, magic happens. And vulnerability and being responsible to helping others, I think is what truly makes a man.
Well, you're a good man. And again, I cherish this time that we've gotten to talk. I cherish the time that we had at Man Games, and I hope and I will do everything I can to make sure that we have as many of these moments as possible. So you're the first official Man Games ambassador, and we'll talk more about that offline. But thanks for taking the time, man. Seriously, I really appreciate it.
Honestly, let's do this again though, because this is my jam, bro.
Yeah.
Like I love this whole scenario. If you need somebody to help you do podcasts in the future with other Man Games participants, like I'm in. Like I love this. This is my jam. I'll talk to somebody on this microphone all day, every day.
Yeah, we'll have co-hosts. We'll do it all.
Yeah, I'm in it, bro. I'm in it for the long haul. I appreciate the last 2.5 hours.
It's all. Tell your wife thank you. Tell her sorry from me that we took you away, but it sounds like the kids were down. So yeah.
No, do the same for me. I'm open outside of this door, and my wife isn't like just sitting there waiting for me. Like you said, it was gonna be 45 minutes. And thank God she knows me really well. She knows like 45 minutes in Nathan time is more like an hour and a half plus. So like if I say,
it's 2 hours and 6 minutes.
So she gets it. She knows who she married. which, you know, we know her strengths really well, and so she knows who she married. Dude, I appreciate you so much. Like I said, I'm so proud of you. You're a special human being, my friend. Thank you for everything.
Yeah. Well, love you, man. We'll talk more. Okay.
Good brother.
Okay.
Bye.